Good morning and welcome to the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I am your host. I am Kurt. Today is Monday, the 2nd of November 2020. Tomorrow, as you probably know, is Election Day, so if you intend to cast a ballot in any of the elections that are currently on the ballot, please remember that you need to do so by tomorrow. Obviously, the earlier you're able to do it, the better. And that's about as much as I'm going to say about that, since I'm quite sure that, again, this is something that you've heard many, many times up to this point if you've done paid any attention to anybody talking about this subject. Obviously, I am here to talk about a blog post this morning, as is usually the case, and the title of the blog post is a sign of the times. And I wanted to just kind of get into some problems that I see in society at this moment in time that I think need to be handled. But I wanted to start by talking about the fact that government at this moment in time is running rampant over the system by which it's designed to operate. If you look at what's happening in the executive branch of the government, you've got people who are writing executive orders and who are doing things administratively that are not supposed to be being done the way that they are, and that are counter to law, to the legislation that's supposed to be being generated by the legislative branch. You've got various things going on that are problematic, to say the least. The pin in the phone comment of the last president highlighted that. Not to say that he was by any means the first who had that attitude, and not to say that that's not something that's even continuing to this day to some degree and extent. The legislative body is currently hauling people up in front of them as if there's some sort of a tribunal, a process that's gotten worse and worse over the course of time, in my opinion. And in some instances, they're literally punishing people for wrongdoing when they do things like, for example, lie to Congress. In the worst of cases, they're doing things like making it so that people are being referred for prosecution for what amount to process crimes, things that should definitely not cause them, because there's no underlying crime, should not cause them to be so done, right? In the judicial branch, the judiciary is essentially, particularly at the Supreme Court level, essentially writing laws, which is something that is by no means in their purview. Now, this is the thing. If you ask the average college student, okay, what are our three branches of government? You would be hard put to find a lot of people who understood that there's a legislative, a judicial, and an executive branch, and you certainly would be hard put to find them understanding who falls under what branch and what they should and should not be able to do. And it's why, one of the reasons, not the reason, but one of the reasons that you see the abuses that are going on in the various branches of government at a federal level. There are already some issues with what's going on at lower levels, some serious issues. But here's the thing. Right now, you've got a bunch of people who are electing folks to office who really shouldn't be there. And there are a couple of things that I consider to be disqualifying features of those individuals, okay? One is that a lot of those individuals are there to enrich themselves and not for much more. And I'm not going to get into naming names. I don't need to. You've heard the stories. You've heard stories of people who are intended to do that. They're not there as statesmen. They're not there intending to take care of, to the degree that they're supposed to, the people within their constituency. They are there for one major purpose. That purpose is to enrich themselves, to make themselves powerful, to make those around them, to make their families and so forth powerful and rich, wealthy, right, well off. None of that is good. None of that is correct. When you go into public office, it should be as a public servant. And that doesn't matter where, and it doesn't matter whether you're appointed or elected or just hired into a job. If it's a public sector job, you should be going into that position as a matter of service. Frankly, if you go into a job, if you go into a workplace, you probably should be expecting to go into that workplace as a matter of service to someone. If you provide goods and services to people, if you're an owner of a company, you should be going into that process as a function of service. But the point is, where the government is concerned, that's especially true. You should be about service. As a business owner, you have to make sure that your company makes a profit, because otherwise you're not serving your employees properly. So you have to balance who you're serving in that regard. As a worker in a given company, you have to make sure that your company does well, remains solvent, and so forth to the degree that you're able, because if it doesn't, you lose your job and so do others, and people who are counting on your products don't get your products, right? As a government, on the other hand, it should pretty much be all about service, about statesmanship, about trying to make it so that the people for whom you are supposed to be working get the things out of government that they should be getting, okay? And there are limitations on that. Let me tell you that the thing that I think a lot of people miss is that there's an underlying problem that makes all of this worse, and it is the uninformed electorate. It is people who are out there who have no idea how things ought to work. They don't understand civics. It's not even just about who they're voting for. It's about what the basis for their voting should be. Okay? When a person walks into the voting booth and doesn't understand that the United States is not a democracy, we are a representative republic. We have democratically elected leadership on a federal level, but we're not a democratic entity. Okay? They show their first level of lack of knowledge when it comes to understanding America. When people in the United States fail to understand that the government is supposed to be a very small entity with some certain specific oversight ideas and concepts that drive how they do business, when they don't understand that, many people show, yet again, their lack of knowledge with regard to how the United States is intended to work. The United States is intended to be a country in which we have a small federal government, small national government with a concise set of predefined roles set up in the Constitution that they should not be going beyond. Each state should then have its own charter document, which is typically a constitution as well, and it also should outline what that level of government should be allowed to do. It should not be taking on federal responsibilities, and it should not be taking on responsibilities of lesser entities or bodies, right? Whether governmental or not. So states shouldn't be taking on county business, counties shouldn't be taking on city business, and so forth. It should really be about them doing the minimum that can be done as you go up the chain. And there's a reason for this, and it is things are different in different parts of every entity, whether it's a country, whether it's a state. Things are different in every part. If you live in Atlanta, Georgia, it's not the same as if you live in Macon, right? It's not the same as if you live in Georgia. It's not the same as if you live in Mississippi. If you live in the United States, it's not supposed to be the same as if you live in Canada. We're not looking for homogeneous government. We're looking for what is going to make the country successful, what is going to make the country prosperous. And I'm not saying that we're perfect in what we're doing, but I think in past we've done a pretty darn fine job of really reducing poverty, real poverty, meaningful poverty, where people are dying of hunger and have no place to live. I think we've done a pretty darn fine job of that, and I think we've done an excellent job as well of increasing the prosperity of our people. But much of it is by government stepping out of the way. Here's the thing, though. If you don't have people who understand how government ought to work, what they ought to be doing, what the government of the United States in particular should look like, why we're prosperous, how we defeat impoverishment. If you don't have people who understand those things, you're going to have problems with who they put into office. It's bad enough that you've got a gigantic administrative state that's doing all kinds of things that it shouldn't be doing at this point. And the thing is, unless you have people in who have an interest in reducing and dismantling a large part of that, it's going to continue to be a problem. As well, when you have people who are intending to enrich themselves, that's going to be a problem instead of be statesmen, instead of serve the people that they're supposed to be in place to work for, to serve. Okay, so I'm about out of time, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. And I just wanted to go ahead and wish you a great day and a great week. I know this is the start of most people's work week, being November the 2nd, Monday of 2020. I hope to see you again tomorrow. That will be Tuesday, the 3rd of November 2020. I hope your day is a good one, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Monday, the 2nd of November, 2020. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for checking out this video. Remember that you can like it on YouTube and you can give it a rumble on Rumble if you want to do that. I have channels on both YouTube and Rumble. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels. You can subscribe to either one of those if you want to do so. Remember, if you subscribe on YouTube, you probably want to click the notification bell in order to be notified of new content. If you want to see more from me, you can check me out on my blog. That's blogs.kpschubert.com, blogs.kpschubert.com. You can also see my Facebook page. That is Kurt's Religion and Politics on Facebook. You can check out my Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com accounts. My handle on all three of those is at kpschubert. That's at kpschubert. You can check out my podcast. The podcast is at podcasts.kpschubert.com. That's podcast.kpschubert.com. And finally, you can check me out on Patreon. And if you want to support me, that's probably one of the better places that you can do that. I am Kurt's Religion and Politics there. Thanks again for checking out this video, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.